Well, hello everyone and welcome to Her Time to Retire. My name is Glenn Price, co-owner and advisor here at Keystone Financial Resources. And really this podcast was created so that we could talk to women in the business world who were really at the top of their game in the industry, and then create a place where they could come and they can share their best ideas with you to help you in the things that you're working on. And today we have an incredible guest with us. Her name is Candace Jenkins. And let me just read a little bit about Candace and what she's done, and then we'll get started. But Candace is the owner of an agency, an independent insurance broker for Jenkins Family Insurance, and she's in Thompson Station, Tennessee. Candace and her family, they practice and have an emphasis on educating and advising their clients just like they would their own family members. They really believe that you should understand what you're protected for and get coverage at the best value in town. That's why Jenkins Family Insurance has partnered with Goosehead Agency to provide over 50 A-rated carriers for their clients. Serving you and your family is their top priority, and they have fun doing it. Candace, we want to welcome you to our podcast today. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful. Well, I'd love for our listeners to learn a little bit about who you are. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and kind of how you've navigated through life to get to where you are today?
Yeah, so really just starting, I've been in insurance for about almost 12 years now, and I started off in the broker space, just working for a family agency, and that's really where I got my footing. From there, I moved on to another agency where I managed a book of business and kind of helped build that out. And then from there, we went to focusing solely on commercial insurance, helping advise business owners in the area and kind of in surrounding states. From there, I went on to taking kind of a sabbatical from the industry, 3 years, just really getting out of the industry because my husband and I felt like that's where God was leading us. Mm-hmm. It was a humbling experience. I got out of an industry that I thought I would be in, for the rest of my life. I had worked up until that point, and the whole goal was to really build like a family legacy, to really have that, own a business and have that business for, my children and their children and their children. I wanted this to be a generational thing. So to have God really tell us, you need to step out of it, and not knowing if we'd ever get back into it.
That had to be hard.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Am I hearing you right? It was like all of that doubt and just really, wondering if God was actually asking us to do that. And He was. He took us, kind of on a journey the past over 3 years now, really just doing, kind of odd end things and freelancing. And I was writing for an insurance company, like as an expert, just kind of advising really. And so I kind of always had a little bit of a foot in the game, but I was not working for an agency and I wasn't practicing or anything like that. So after that, I had an opportunity to purchase a franchise, and that became Jenkins Family Insurance.
Okay, so you got back into the business.
We got back into the business after really like 3 years of God just humbling me and really showing me to rely on Him and not on myself and not on performance. I think as women, like we get into this, especially if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or in like a high sales-driven career, you get into this mode of relying on yourself and what you can do, and God kind of can get pushed into the background, and that really is what happened. I wasn't relying on God; I was relying on my own ability and my own work ethic, and I knew I was a hard worker, so of course I was going to succeed, and I didn't. I fell.
You fell. It's interesting though. I love that, and thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable to share that, because it's the truth, but it's where we learn. It's like, I was thinking some things that entered in my mind as you were talking. It's like that competitiveness and that performance-based type work, and I've battled that myself, and I find that it's either driven by my pride or fear.
Right.
Fear of I'm not enough, and like I've got to earn my way, I've got to prove myself. Talk a little bit about like what we talked a little bit yesterday, but what the Lord was really showing you in terms of what needed to be surrendered. Was it your pride? Was it fear? What was it, or a combination of? What was going on there?
Yeah, it was really my pride. I had developed this. I mean, if you're in sales at all, I mean, it's terribly difficult not to develop an ego because you get rejected a lot in sales and in production. You just do because you hear no a lot more than you hear yes. And so as you're building this business and you're, gaining clients, you're going to have to tell yourself every day, it's okay. Like you're going to make it. And so you're kind of your own cheerleader, and really God wants to be your cheerleader, right? And so I think if you're not spending time with him and you're not focusing, giving the business or the career over to God, then that you can become your own cheerleader, and then you can, kind of get that pride and that ego
in the way there. One of the things that's come into my mind, I think it would apply to everybody who's listening, is like, when you're chasing the performance, a lot of times if people don't really understand why they're doing what they're doing, then their perseverance is going to waver. And next thing you know, they're like, well, they want to go do something different. And so, what I was thinking about is your why. Like you had to get back to, if you're not motivated by being at the top or the performance, then the real solid motivation comes from your why. So I'd like to hear a little bit about what is your why today, and what's driving you. If it's not the competitive side, by other people and the performance, then what is it that drives you today?
So the why has actually never changed. It's been the intention, really, that's changed. So the why has always been to build kind of like a legacy, a lasting legacy for my kids and my family, and so that they would be prepared in life. I grew up and we didn't have that, right? I always thought it was cool when I would see families that had like a family business or, something that they could go into if they wanted to. And I really wanted that foundation, for our kids and, future generations if they wanted to get into the business. I wanted to build something that was lasting. The key with that is that I wanted to build it instead of allowing God to really work through me and build that for him and for his kingdom. So the why is going to remain the same. That's always been really a promise, to me from God, was that we were going to have that, but it was, I needed to be humbled and break down really like where are my intentions? Are they to be prosperous? Are they to build my family up? Or are they to build the kingdom of God, up and help people and serve people? And so really that's where the shift kind of happened there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when you own your own business, and you're talking about family, I love how you're focused on the family. Then you have more control over your time. Now, you could succumb to the busyness and think, well, I just can't ever stop. There's the balance there, right? So as a mom, because I can tell you're driven and you're motivated, self-motivated to go get it. But how do you find that balance of being a mom, and think, okay, I'm doing this for my family, but then there's also that I've got to be a mom. Right? There's sometimes you got to take the hat off, and when you go home, now you got to switch roles and become mom. So talk a little bit about that balance, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that are, that battle that. They've got children, maybe they're a single mom, and they're trying to figure out, how do I balance, when's enough for today, right? And then be able to switch gears and focus on being mom and developing character in your kids.
I think, that Bible verse, tomorrow, don't worry about tomorrow because the day has enough troubles of its own. I mean, that really kind of sticks with you, and it also coincides with there's always going to be something to do. There's always going to be work. Some things are more urgent than others, right? and some things need to be taken care of immediately. But most things I've had to learn, like throughout the years, sense of urgency. In this business, there's a lot of urgency in insurance and probably in financial planning, I would assume as well. But there's also, not everything's a fire. And so to really kind of navigate that and know that as well, like trusting in the Lord. So I actually have a podcast called Rest Girl, and it's really to get women out of that hustle culture, that hustle mentality, and just into relying on and trusting God. I think it all boils down to when you create this busyness for yourself, and maybe you're missing time with your kids, or you're missing dinner, or you're missing bedtime, or you're missing these key moments with your kids because you're like, oh, one more task, one more sale, one more client. It's really, to me, like God has taught me that is me not trusting that He's going to provide for me tomorrow. And if I can trust that He will do what He says He's going to do through His word, then I don't need to be busy all the time. I don't need to strive, because He will make me thrive as long as I trust in Him.
One of the things that I just thought about and how we've applied that here. We're Christians, and our faith is very important to us, and our clients know that. But, Monday through Friday, I was game on, from early morning till late in the afternoon. And so the trust thing, and one of the things that we did, a change that we made in our office is the advisors here, we only see clients on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
I do that too.
and we freed up Monday to do planning, talk about the week, different things. And then on Friday, I don't come into the office at all on Fridays. But what I found is that not only we're actually doing more, our business and volume has actually gone up, but the quality of the meetings that I have with our clients has gotten much better, because our goal here is not to get as many clients as we can. We want to get every client, and we take every client personal. We tell clients, like, look, at Keystone, we're known for fighting for what's most important to our clients. But then we're going to challenge our clients to live the life that they deserve in retirement. And we care, and we take it very personal. And so now, we don't overbook ourselves. So we're spending the time and cultivating deeper relationships. And then I'm finding that it's created, more space for me with my family. And that was a trust thing that you're talking about, something concrete where you make a change. You go, okay, I don't know if I can do this, but Lord, my goal, going back to your why are you doing it, right? You want to create an environment that, that is not just this running with your hair on fire kind of environment, but that you're aware, you're present with your people, and doing your best work. And so you said you do that. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I knew getting back in, and that was part of my fear. It was like I was like, God, I don't want to go down that road again. And so He really had to push me back into the industry. And there was things that happened that I was like, okay, this is from God. Like, this is what He's calling us to do. But I had that fear of like, am I going to fall back into the same routine? Like, I don't know how to do this business without working myself into the ground.
Correct.
How am I going to do that? And it's like, it's day by day, right? Day by day, trusting Him, starting my day off with Him, being consistent, throughout the day, like taking a break, going for a walk, just talking to God throughout the day. If I can do that and be consistent with that, then, already He's taken it, further and better than I would have ever done it on my own. So.
Yes. Well, as we're talking, it's like, I don't know, I just feel in my heart that this is a message for some of the listeners out there who maybe are experiencing burnout and who are experiencing, I don't know when's enough, when to stop, I can't stop. And I really want to encourage you listeners to be willing to think outside the box and be willing to put, your self-care up at the top of the list, because that way you're going to be better not only for your clients, but you're going to be better for yourself and your family. And so maybe be willing to change your work schedule. And you think, I can't do it. Again, that's where the faith comes in. It's like, okay, because I got to do this. When people call, I got to respond. Yes. And now I'm finding that we take control of that, right. and it's better for everyone. But that was a hard first step. And I feel like there's some listeners out there that really need to be taking that first step of like really looking at your calendar, yes. and then determining why you're doing what you're doing, going back to that why. Is there a deeper motivation than just money, right? There has to be. Yes. And really begin to write some of those things down. Put some of those things on paper. Like, what, did you do any of that? Do you journal?
Yeah, I do. And it's funny, I just released a podcast, like literally about distractions and going through your calendar and asking God, like, do you want me to go to this? Like, even getting as specific as like, do you want me to go to this meeting? Do you want me to spend my time? Because I think we can get so distracted. And they might be good things. Mm-hmm. They might be things that, yeah, sure, we might be able to get a client or further our career, but are they God things?
Are they the best God? Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So really just doing that. I also went through, I hired myself a trauma coach. She's actually in Tennessee, local, and she's awesome. She went back. We did a lot of deep trauma work. I had kind of a rough childhood, and so going back through those roots and figuring out why I needed to be busy, why I felt like I needed to perform. Almost always there's a deeper issue that we've learned to react to. Oh, and so God just took me on a journey for like 3 years of just some really deep work. And it wasn't pretty and it wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And so if you're serious about changing, it really has less to do with willpower and more to do with figuring out why you're doing those things in the first place and asking God to help you through that, and sometimes hiring somebody to help you through that knows how to manage that, which is what I did. So
well, that Candace is powerful, and we could talk for another 2 hours or more on that, right. Because that's near and dear to my heart. Yeah. Because I had a traumatic childhood, and and fortunately my family didn't completely blow up. It did blow up in some areas, but the Lord's been able to keep that in restoration, and reconciliation has taken place and is still in the process of that. But you're right. You have to go back to figure out why you do things the way you do them. Right. And when you go to that, and it means that you have to kind of go back through those painful spots, and address that to really get to the core of who you are, yes. and why you're doing what you're doing, and then there's like a recalibration that needs to take place, yes. like this reset, right? And once that reset takes place, then now it's like, okay, what I'm finding is that I begin to recognize those triggers quicker.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
Like, oh, okay, wait a minute, no, I'm doing a workout thing right now, and I'm highly competitive. Yeah. And there's 3 of us in a group, and one of my guys, his numbers were down. Well, we've been leading the charts, so which is what I look at. I like that. But it was just an awakening to me because he didn't have a great week. Yeah. It affected our score, and it bothered me. Yeah. And I was able to go back and go, wait a minute, why are you doing this? Is it so you can win the competition? Or is it so that you can incorporate something that will sustain in your life? Yes. And so I was able to catch it and go, nope, I'm not going to go there. Right. And all those feelings just kind of went away. Yes. And I wasn't mad at my buddy anymore. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to call him and say, hey, what are you doing, man?
And I think, too, it's like people think, oh, well, if I do some kind of trauma coaching or healing or whatever work, then those things won't bother me anymore. And it's to your point that you begin to recognize the triggers. They still trigger you. Those things that bothered you, they still bother you. But now you're like, oh, hang on. I know how to handle this.
Right, you have some tools.
I know how to regulate myself,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. That is so good. And I think there's a lot of people who are just, whether they've got a lot of stress, whether it's the single mom trying to manage a household and make a living at the same time.
Right.
You know, just the stress of that can be daunting. But, you know, willing to, you know, to make an investment in yourself, to hire a coach, because that could be the best thing. I mean, we all need help, right? You know, none of us are perfect.
No.
I mean, you start looking at our families, it's like
Most of us need help.
we all come from broken families, and there's no shame in that. And it's really a healthy shame to be able to go, I can't do this by myself. You know, God, I need your help. And then he starts lining people up to help you, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. So you've been married for how long now?
Oh, it'll be 14 years this December.
And you've got how many children?
I have twin boys that are 9.
Twin boys. And how old are they?
They're 9.
9
They just
years
turned 9,
old. So are they playing ball? Or?
Oh, they are. They're in baseball, and I tell you what, baseball is intense. I signed them up for a rec league thinking, you know, this will be fun. No, it's like practice 3 days a week. I'm like, what is this? Major leagues.
True story. My oldest son, who's 20 now, played baseball. And I was just always at the baseball field. We had 4 kids. And so girl, boy. So like the girls, they don't all want to go hang out at the baseball field. So like we were always divided. And so my youngest son, who's just turned 12 this week, Hudson, when he was little, I said, you can play any sport but baseball. Because of the intense schedule.
Intense.
That's probably wrong of me as a parent, but I'm like, I don't want to go to another baseball field. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So, so tell me, I want to learn a little bit more about your business. Like you do commercials, so who would your client be, and kind of walk us through, if there's listeners out there that may need some of the things that you do, like what do you do, and what's your business all about?
Yeah, so we are an independent insurance agency. We're a broker, so we work with over 50 A-rated carriers. We can do small business. That was a lot of my specialty in the past, but we focus on really the consumer, the family now. And we'll still focus on the business owner too, but our main focus is the family. So we do auto, home, umbrella, if you have ATVs, golf carts, all those kind of things. That's where that's kind of our playground and where we help people. Really what we try to do, besides providing options and, hopefully a lower rate, which is important, especially if you're a single parent or you're budgeting, like most of us are, like you want the lowest rate you can get. But what I like to do in our approach is really advise that client and take them through like every coverage. Here's why you need this, and here's what you currently have, and here's why I might recommend something different. Most people are underinsured and they have no clue until a car accident happens, and now they're being sued personally because they, have $100,000 on their auto policy in coverage, and they really should have had $250,000, and they should have had an umbrella of $1 million. Most people think, I don't have enough assets, I don't need that much coverage, but when lawyers start getting involved, they're going to take everything that they can, and unfortunately, if something turns fatal, and it's your negligence or your fault, deemed to be your fault for that accident, they'll go after everything. And one thing that clients really don't know or anticipate is that they can garnish your wages. Oh, wow. So even if you don't have the money sitting in the bank, you're like, oh, I'm fine. I don't have $1 million. They're not going to come after me for $1 million. That's not true. That's not true. They'll garnish your wages indefinitely if they want. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So and it's different in every state, but most people don't know that, and so that's where we kind of try to. And the thing with it is that a little bit more liability insurance might cost you an extra $40 a year. I mean, it's pretty inexpensive.
So it's not like this.
No,
many times it's not as expensive as we may think it is.
Right, and they just don't know. It's really just educating. So I've always operated like that, even working for other agencies, and I continue to operate more as like an advisor and an educator, so that they really understand what they're getting.
So you like go in and do like what I would call a fact finder, like you would come in and evaluate what someone has, and go through each piece, really dissect the coverage and the limits, the deductibles, all the stuff. and then you, based on their life, then you say, okay, hey, either yep, you're on track, or you know what, hey, I see this, and here's why I would do this. So
Right.
you really get in there and do
Yes.
that. Like,
And-
do they come to you? Do you go to them? How does that work?
But I mean, we do a lot over the phone through Zoom. We meet with them if they want to meet as well. But it's a lot of phone calls or a lot of Zoom calls, really, because people, the last thing they want to talk about is insurance. So we try to make it as painless as possible.
Right.
A lot of times I can go through something in like 15 to 20 minutes. Half an hour max, unless they really have a lot of questions. And so it's pretty painless, and that's really just, I go through their current coverage and yes, why they might want something different if they need something different. And that's the thing too, is like we're not trying to sell everybody. If you have excellent coverage where you're at and you're getting a great rate, I'm not going to try to get you to come over unless you want to come
Right.
to our agency.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, you're in a good spot, where you're at.
Well, it sounds to me like on the property and casualty side of things, the commercial side, you're very similar to how we do things here. We're a full service firm, and we build a comprehensive financial plan. Like when people come in, we'll ask the question, hey, do you have a financial plan? And they'll go, oh yeah, we've got one. Well, did you bring it? Yeah. And they'll slide it across the table. And what they're sliding across the table is their investment portfolio. But that's just one of 5.
Right.
So there's taxes, there's income, there's health care, there's legacy, there's 5 core pieces. And until you have somebody guide you through
Yes.
and really understand you and then be able to customize those pieces, then I would submit that even in your field that they don't have a full comprehensive plan.
No.
I'm sitting here thinking right now, even in I've used State Farm.
Yeah.
And it's just the name.
Yeah.
And one of my greatest fears is like if I wanted to change, like, well, if I go to XYZ company, then when it's claims time, they're not going to be there. So I need a big company to do that.
Right.
What would you say to me in that regard? Because I've never had a full, I like the guy that I use,
Right.
but they've never come in and done a full, fact finder on me. And I've stayed there because of State Farm, right, because of the name.
Yeah.
So, like, what would you say to me of for me to feel comfortable, go, okay, maybe that's holding me back when maybe I need to look further.
Yeah, so I actually go through that with my clients. There's a huge misconception. Money and advertising dollars in this industry, in the insurance industry, are king. So really, State Farm, the Geicos, the Farmers, the Allstates, they have large pocketbooks, and they're able to advertise and get in front of the consumer through means of, commercials and social media. They spend a lot of money on that, like billions of dollars. And that's why you probably feel more comfortable, right, with them. Even if you don't really know your agent, you might feel more comfortable because you're like, they're everywhere, they're going to pay my claim.
The branding.
Yeah, and they will. They do have a good financial standing. So absolutely, if the claim's covered and it's a coverable loss, they'll pay it. So that's not a concern. But what I would say the misconception is that when you go with a broker, some of the carriers you might know and some of them you've never heard of. But they're all A-rated carriers, which means they have the same financial standing as those State Farms and Geicos, and they just don't choose to spend their money on advertising. And so really just knowing that, and then you can open up your whole world of possibilities really to finding better coverage potentially, or more unique coverage, or coverage that is lower in premium, but still working with a quality insurance provider.
And then are you there, like, if I were your client, for example, then if I've got an issue, do I have to call the insurance company?
No.
Or I call you and you take it and run with it from there?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So I'm always available for my clients, and I have a customer service team. So if I'm in a meeting like this or doing a podcast, they can call that number if they need something quick. If they at the dealership and they need something, an auto ID card or proof of insurance, they can do that quickly. Otherwise, they can always call me too. So.
Well, Candace, I've just thoroughly enjoyed having you here, and one of the things that I see in you, and I appreciate the parts of your story that you shared, is that you're someone who's you're comfortable in your own skin, and which allows you to really be here and be present with me. And I can tell that you're that way with your clients, and it's like, your why is, before it's like you went back to understand how you operated, and how you operate today is very different. And there's a calming and a peace with you that I appreciate that. So if these women, if there's any women out there that are listening, and maybe they heard some of the things that you talked about, whether it has to deal with maybe trauma in their own life, or the entrepreneur mom, those type things. How would they contact you? How can they find you? Can they call you and chat with you on the phone?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my number is 615-393-6634. Otherwise, they can email me as well at Candice, Jenkins@goosehead.com. Those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. And yeah, I always get back, and I typically same day, but I say 24 hours just in case.
Yeah. Well, I hope that if you're out there listening today and you've heard something that Candace has spoken about, or even things that we've talked about here, that I've talked about at Keystone of what we do, then I hope you'll take her up on that offer and give her a call. Again, the name of her company is Jenkins Family Insurance. Is that right?
Yes.
And it's in Thompson Station, which is a beautiful area, by the way.
Yes.
And if there's anything that you need here with us, we're always here as a resource to not only help our clients, but help those of you who are maybe navigating through things, that whether it's other tools that you need, maybe there's some financial things that need to be taken care of that we could potentially help you with. You can reach us at keystonefinancialresources.com, or you can call us at 615-661-9554. But we thank you so much for sitting in with us today. And Candace, again, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You have been listening to Her Time to Retire with Glenn Price and Jonathan Scott. Glenn and Jonathan would love to talk to you and answer any of your retirement questions. All listeners can take advantage of a free 15-minute consultation with Glenn and Jonathan, whether via a phone call, Zoom meeting, or in person. You can schedule your consultation by calling 615-661-9554 or by visiting our website at www.keystonefinancialresources.com. Thanks for listening. The opinions expressed by Keystone Financial Resources and guests on this podcast are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this station. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to subject covered. Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, LLC, or BCM, a registered investment advisor. BCM and Keystone Financial Resources are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BCM, but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents.